I'd like to call our regular meeting of City Council for Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 to order. The City of Dawson Creek acknowledges that we are privileged to live and work on Treaty 8 territory and the traditional home of the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Sicanee, and Slavey First Nations. We value the Métis people that live and gather here. We commit to upholding the respectful relationship these nations have built with the land, and we acknowledge our responsibility to carry that forward today and into the future. Just before I call the meeting to order, I'd just like to welcome Melissa, our new CFO, to the room. So welcome, Melissa. So welcome. So our first order of business, call the meeting to order. Second, delegations. 2.1, we have Mr. Duncan Melkinson, Executive Director, Dawson Creek and District Chamber of Commerce in attendance regarding consideration of tax rates in the 2024 financial plan. So welcome, Duncan. Yep, you bet. It is all yours. So,
well, good morning to council, staff, everybody present. As Darcy mentioned, I'm Duncan Melkinson. I'm the executive director of the Dawson Creek Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak a little bit today. Just off the bat, this is it's a challenging thing to note, right? Because we all strive for a good balance between tax rates, affordability, business prosperity, and the chamber prides itself in being a positive advocate for the economic and social welfare of the South Peace. So all that I say tries to reflect that. But today I'm here in service to my members, just basically to share some thoughts and concerns regarding the increases in general municipal taxes that are included in the budget assumptions report a few weeks back. The increase itself has been on our radar for a while. The 5-year financial plan does have, a number of increases, or a decent percent of increases included over the next few years, I assume, to try to navigate the city's finances towards that fair share operating ratio that's been a desire of council for a long time. But this year, it seems there's a notable increase from 21.1 million to 23.4 million in 2024, and that will likely pose a few challenges in general municipal taxes, and I predict that that'll pose a few challenges for local businesses. So definitely, there's cost pressures throughout the budgeting process. And, our goal as a chamber is to basically introduce some de-escalating, pressure on that budgeting process as well, so that council can, recognize the, some of the, challenges that, business owners experience, with inflation, with, rising costs, with, some of the, regulatory challenges that are existing for businesses in the South Peace. And that, council can, avow for the value for money and some of the discretionary parts that it has in its budget. So historically, Dawson's had a good edge for, folks, new families starting out, hoping to, start a family with, low living costs. Some of the feedback that we've been hearing from our members, particularly those with large shops or large buildings, is how challenging property taxes can be for attracting or retaining investment in the South Peace. So based on prior increases that local businesses have noted challenges accommodating, and the fact that this one's looking like it'll be like the 24 is going to be larger than prior years, I think underscores the need to look at costs and, to spread the increase over multiple years if possible. So, we want to be a positive voice for, economic welfare in the South Peace. We appreciate, everybody at City Hall, appreciate our elected leaders. But just given that this year looks like it's going to be significant on the property tax front, we encourage council to review costs closely over the next few months and to spread this increase over time if possible. So that's largely what I'd had to say this morning, but I just wanted to thank each of you. I know that many in this room have worked for years toward the fiscal prudence of the city to make sure that things are where they need to be. And, we want to be a good partner in that conversation and, continue making Dawson Creek a prosperous and healthy place to live. So, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Duncan. I'll open it up to council first for any questions. Anybody? No? Oh, Councillor Earl? Oh, I guess I'll try that again, Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Duncan. Thanks for coming in with visiting with us. I appreciate the chamber needs to be mindful of these issues on behalf of their members, and certainly as somebody who's in a previous life was involved on the chamber board, I understand the need and the perspective you're bringing. So with respect to current plans, our strategic priority is to achieve the revenue increases. Obviously, every year, depending on market forces, depending on what gets built, depending on a whole host of externalities, those plans are adjusted. But the ultimate goal is to, by 2030, land at that 70-30 split between fair share or Peace
Operating
River
to capital
Accord
ratio,
being
yeah.
allocated towards capital and 30 towards operations. I guess the request or the suggestion you made that we spread that out over a longer period of time, would that, I guess, be reflected in pushing that date back? Or, I mean, is that?
I think, those prerogatives and those, the balancing act that council needs to play, it's a perspective that, each of you have that, I as a representative of the chamber might not, have that, broad holistic, kind of perspective, with respect to the fund accounting and the, approach that council might want to take towards, allocating certain monies towards fair share and not. I think the challenge that, I want to outline today is basically that the jump from, the 2.3 to 2.4, general municipal tax will probably be, challenging for some businesses, and I predict other folks in the community to accommodate. So it's more on that basis that I'm doing that okay. I'm speaking.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Any other comments? No? All right, I had a few, wanted to thank you for coming in, Duncan, and expressing the concerns. And I think it's something that we don't take lightly when we're going through this. It's whether it's business owners or residents that are on fixed incomes, definitely something we're looking at. And, it's been a year with this new council, and I really believe and feel that every decision we've made is really trying to do what's just right for our community as a whole, and we're definitely looking at every area. So we appreciate you coming in and expressing this, because it's good for us to hear, right, and to understand where everybody's coming from. It's tough times, right, with inflation, and even the inflation the city's facing, and so many years of no tax increase too. There's so many different variables that come in. So, but we're definitely, want to be as efficient as possible with our budget and the way we're doing things. So, so I appreciate that a lot. I also wanted to thank you and the chamber as well. I noticed in the last while there's just been an uptake in the chamber's activities in the community, whether it's the new newsletter that's coming out, which has been extremely valuable, the mixers that you've been doing. It just seems like there's been some exciting things happening. So I wanted to thank you as well for that. So it's definitely something that I've noticed, and I think everybody's noticed. I've heard quite a few comments about it. So so thank you. And then I guess, so the direct ask to us is if we will look at the increase for this year, extending that over a further time frame than 1 year. Is that?
That's one potential action. I should return your compliment, though. Wonderful words about the chamber. The whole group really appreciates it, and I think further some of the initiatives the cultural initiatives that council's led over the last few years have been really well received in the community as well, and I think that's large in part thanks to your leadership, Darcy. So Thank you. But in terms of the direct ask, I think it's more, I think an encouragement to, closely consider value for money on some of the discretionary spending that council has access to through the budget process. And to spread if possible. But again, I say that in recognizing that I don't have the holistic perspective or the full breadth of information that councillors might have access to. So
Yeah.
as a stakeholder of the city and in service to my members, that's the perspective that I bring today.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Duncan. Well, if there's no other questions, just thanks for coming in, Duncan,
Yeah.
and we appreciate you being here, so.
Mutual.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next order of business is 2.2. We have Mr. Alex Reshny, President, South Peace Mile Zero Park Society, in attendance regarding the 2023 project update. So I did have Joe on my list. Is he coming? Or?
He's absent.
Oh, is he? Okay, perfect, I guess.
My guard dog isn't here with me today.
Yeah.
In fact, he was at home 10 minutes ago when I phoned him, so.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks to your worship, Mayor Dober, councillors, city staff for all your support and allowing us to present today all of the happenings of 2023 to date out at Mile Zero Park Society's property that we look after for the city. There's still a few things will happen before year end. And I'd like to thank for all the help, assistance, support this year. We want to especially thank Ryan, since he's come on board, and especially Melina and Corey from Parks for their help and quick response to our needs. Joe Hawkins for lending us equipment and quick responses when we've needed something done. The use of the city skid steer this year has allowed us basically to have get things done, and also what it did do is save the city a bunch of money and ourselves a great deal financially. But especially I want to thank Councillor Parslow, our liaison with the city, who has given us great assistance and guidance, which has allowed us to accomplish more than we ever expected to this year. We are one of the few non-profit organizations that pays their own utilities, plus a great deal of maintenance cost. And I'd like to thank the city for the two gifts over the last 5 years, that some councillors might not know about, is the railway comboose and the story of the Alaska Highway, which is now located in the old Bay Tree Hall. Gifts, that people will give the city from time to time that keep costing and for upkeep and maintenance. But we are thankful for being able to have these great additional attractions to Pioneer Village. It definitely helps us, but I know it's going to continue to cost us. In Walter Wright Pioneer Village, we had 5,120 visitors so far, and we are expecting an additional 700 to 1,000 more when Rotary has their old-fashioned Christmas coming up on December 10th. Last year we had a total of 6,500. We won't reach that number this year. This year we were able to level all the boardwalks in front of the buildings on Main Street. They'd become out of level by as much as 10 inches, sloping inward, running water into the buildings instead of outward by 1 or 2 inches. But we were able to do this in 7 to 8 days, which would approximately have taken 6 to 7 weeks without the city skid steer if we'd had to do it with hydraulic jacks. So the staff was more than appreciative because it was done so quick. We were also able to put new metal shakes that looked like cedar shakes onto 14 buildings. 6 of these were log, which is rare in any museum grounds that I've traveled, and I've traveled right to Alaska and back, and so this is rare to have 6 log buildings in one village. So of the 14 buildings, 13 are owned by South Peace Historical Society, 1 by MOPS. This was done for a cost very close to $427,000 when the dust settled, which was covered by grants, funding, donations of approximately $396,000. Balance owing by South Peace Historical Society is $30,320. This will protect the buildings for many years to come from rainwater getting in and damaging the interior or the artifacts inside the buildings. Some buildings had developed some leaks, but there was no real damage. We were told these shakes should be good for 70 to 100 years. I won't be around for the next change. Thank you. The cost savings was due to volunteers, MOP staff, and again, the use of the city skid steer for unloading all the supplies and moving them to different buildings as they were needed by Henderson Roofing, who was doing the work. This is very greatly appreciated, and the cooperation and our working relationship with the city has truly been appreciated by the MOPS board and more so by the staff. Sedaton Hall, a city-owned building, this past summer, we lined all the outside basement walls with pressure-treated wood from the top of the cement wall to 10 to 12 inches below ground, covering the top of the waterproof membrane that was installed when we had the weeping tile installed 2 years ago. Did you want this done, or is everybody here?
No, I think it's working.
Yeah, okay. This was all done again by volunteers and staff before the landscaping around the entire building was started. A new cement border dug into the pavement around the outside of the flower beds was put in to divert the water runoff from the highway and the parking lot as it goes around the outside of the hall down to the creek by bypassing the hall instead of going through the hall sump pumps. And thank you for helping getting that done. It's a big help. I won't be out there sandbagging this year. So, well, I will be sandbagging, just the first part. Inside the hall, new curtains were installed at the front of the stage to replace the old, and I don't have it in here, but the old yellow, ugly original ones. I think they came right from Tom's Lake to here. So, plus we put a new curtain at the back of the stage to hide all the electrical panels from being visible to the public when there's an event out there. Costing of this was $7,000 and again installed by volunteers. New and improved lighting has just been completed in Sedaton Hall this last week by CAO, plus other electrical problems we've come across have been resolved. And I believe the bill is going to be around another $3,000, but if you're in there working with the lighting we had, and it came very apparent at last year's Rotary auction, you couldn't read the paper because the lights just were that poor. So we put in LED lights, a strip of them, where there was used to be 2 fluorescent lights at the front, and so that we can now read in there. We've just ordered some soundproofing panels for approximately $3,500 to help with the acoustics in the hall, and hoping to have them installed before year end. Hopefully this will get rid of some of the background noise, and when there's a small group in there, you just don't hear well. The 17 buildings with paint damage from the 2021 hailstorm, we were able to get the first 5 painted this year, 1 by the city, 4 by MOP staff. This isn't getting done as fast as it should have been, but hopefully in the next year or 2, we can get it completed. It was to be done over a 5-year plan starting in 22, with 0 painted that year, but due to cost changes, unforeseen circumstances, things have changed. But between the city and MOPS, we will get this painting done. This was to be done totally by the city, but thanks for the help with the splash pad conversion to the misting. This allowed extra time for the staff to get more things done, like the painting, plus other things by our staff. And if they stand around too long, there's a guy down there by the name of Alex that'll find them work to do. Rotary Recreation Park has seen some changes and improvements this year. The conversion of the splash pad to the misting pad being one of the major ones, which basically took 2 years of research and working with Habitat Solutions to get product. The splash pad, for those who didn't know, would not have operated this year. It was due to the tank had totally collapsed. We had less than 12 inches of space between the top of the tank and the bottom of the tank, which used to be 44 inches. So there was no water to be had in that tank, so it would have been shut down. Basically our original estimate to convert was $193,000. The final cost was actually $121,000. Due to a great deal of volunteer work and not having a contractor come in from Penticton to do some of the work, which he was going to charge us $35,000, and took Joe Harbour and myself 2 days to do. So it was a crazy number, but I guess that's what they wanted. We do thank the city for the support and help in getting this done, as I know it was well used, enjoyed by many in the community, especially the smaller children, under 8 years of age, which before last year, the 8-year-olds and under couldn't hardly get on there because all the bigger kids were on there. So, and it was originally designed for a supplement to the Rotary Lake. It wasn't a standalone splash pad. It was basically designed for kids, smaller kids that couldn't be in the lake to come there and play. So, and hopefully in the future we'll get another bigger one. The bridge crossing the creek in the park was reopened after repairs with new planks to replace any rotten and broken ones. The gazebo on the west side of the creek had the landscaping done and is now ready for use again after being closed to the public for 3 years. The parking lot along Highway 97 was upgraded with a lift of 8 to 12 inches of recycled pavement coming from a city project, and thanks to Joe Modishaw for his forethought. We were looking at graveling it, and it wouldn't, as it had not been upgraded or looked after for a great number of years, and probably from back in the 80s or 90s was the last time it was looked at. So this will now be good for many years to come, and a great addition for the future use of development of the complete park, because it'll be a great big parking area for vehicles as we develop the park. The older metal playground equipment and cement anchors both sides of the creek were removed and taken away this spring. The ones on the west side of the creek had all the in-ground border wooden beams removed and all the sand put in one location. The old playground holes plus other former holes were filled in with dirt and topsoil and new grass planted. The wood beams and the sand on the east side of the creek were removed after the park closed for the season, making way for the installation of the new playground, which is near completion now, and it will be completed next spring. I know he was missing a few parts on that playground, and of course the rubber matting will get put in next year. Again, working with the city, we were able to use the skid steer to get this all done on our own without asking the city staff to come and do it. So it saved both of us, and we got it done in good time. We now have developed a general plan for the development of Rotary Recreation Park, which you will hear about in a future presentation to City Council. I'm scheduled for in 2 weeks, but I don't know if I can get it all put together, but I'll give it a whirl. Mile Zero Campground site has 5,572 RVs stay this year, down from the 7,100 last year, but I can tell you that the income will be probably fairly close, within about $5,000, because some of them that stayed longer. This is just the number of RVs that stayed, but we had a few more long-termers, and we also had people that had went up the highway, got turned around, and had to come back here and stay till the smoke cleared up the highway and they could continue on. So the RV sites and roads have not been changed for many years. I believe some since the 1990s, when RVs were 16 and 20 foot long. We're hoping to do a major upgrade to the roads and sites in the following year, depending on funding and grants, and we do have one grant application in right now, and we're looking at putting a second one in, because it'll be about $150,000 to upgrade all the roads. The laundromat, a city building, did see 2 new industrial washing machines installed at a cost of $11,000 this spring, and we continue to upgrade as necessary. The laundromat building did need all 6 doors to open outward before we could open in the spring of 2024 due to fire regulation changes. And this was again completed in early October by volunteers. So both the RVs and visitors were down, and I believe due to fires and constant smoke in our areas, as was the use of the misting pad. There was too many days with smoke that we didn't see a whole lot of people there. So. And this is basically for your information what we were dealing with and trying to maintain. In 1992, when the village was relocated, there were 7 buildings owned, city-owned buildings, 12 buildings owned by the South Peace Historical Society, which I believe is quite accurate from what I've researched, for a total of 19 facilities. Today there are 7 buildings still owned by the city, 22 by South Peace Historical Society, 19 by Mile Zero Park Society, for a total of 48 facilities. And all are getting older like I am, and costs of repairs keep climbing. One MOPS building was removed this fall due to safety. Our main income is still from the same RV park that hasn't changed. What we are asking for the city, though, is not financial, but for some name changes, making up 3 parts that we look after through our management lease agreement with the city. In order to get liability insurance a few years ago, we had to separate it because each area has their own specialty insurance, but still under one policy. 2 years ago, we were unable to get insurance on the recreation park side, so the city got insurance for us. We are now again able to get insurance on all 3 areas. Our proposal and request to have the name changes for verification. We are asking for City Council to pass a bylaw renaming as following. Mile Zero Campsite, which is the RV campground. Walter Wright Pioneer Village, which also includes Sedaton Hall, the office, everything enclosed in the fenced area east of the hall and the parking lot. And the third is Rotary Recreation Park, which is also the area south of the road coming from Peace River Regional District right over to Walter Wright Pioneer Village. If the city would like help with drawing out the areas, I'd be more than happy to oblige and help with this. Thanks again for your time, continued support, and cooperation going forward. If there's any questions and concerns, I'll have Joe answer them. Joe! No, I'll try and answer any questions you have, and thank you guys for all the support. I can never say thank you enough.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Councillor Parslow.
Yes, it's one of my pleasures being on council to work with you guys, for sure. Alex, are you going to be putting in a written formal request around these name changes, or are you just doing...
I can do that, or I can leave this here copy out front.
Well, staff will tell you what they want. The Combus.
Yes.
I don't know if new councillors know that there's only about 5 of those in Canada, we're lucky to have one of them.
There's 5 remaining. 2 in Edmonton, 1 in Athabasca, and 1 in Fort McMurray.
Okay. And
we are fortunate, very fortunate to have one, and that's why the Mile Zero put the roof over top of it, is to protect it till we had the money to restore it.
And that roof cost about $150,000, wasn't it?
Just over.
Yeah.
With the walkway.
So that, as you may know, I think all my colleagues here have been in this community long enough. That was part near the art gallery, and it was in a very bad state of affairs, and it had been misused in a sense. And it's just an example, of city, Mile Zero Park Society cooperative effort. A grant was obtained, we moved it, a rail line was secured, and we have an asset there that is now well protected, but is just an example of, if there wasn't this opportunity for the city to have the Mile Zero Park Society look after it, the city would be faced with a major bill or the destruction of it. And so it's just one of many examples. I was on council when the Sedaton Hall was condemned, and the city received strong advice to get rid of it. And through a lot of hard work by members of the Mile Zero Park Society, we have a very safe and functioning community hall. And it always delights me how many community groups use that. It's like having our own community hall right in the community, rather than going off to Roller Hall or Tate Creek Hall and so on. So I just like to thank you for your help to the city. It's a great partnership, and I know there's a great chemistry between yourself and staff, and I appreciate what you said about Ryan as well. Ryan's new to his job, but has got a really good handle on what I would call it the historical, archival side of city operations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Other comments? I had a couple. I mean, Alex, I know I've said this before, but just can't thank you enough and the whole organization and what you guys do for our community, the volunteers, the staff. It was really nice to hear the relationship that you have with the city staff, like, and just, that positive back and forth communication. So, and then just, your update and all the things you're doing down there and how much that means to our community and bringing our community together. I mean, words can't really thank you enough for that. So I know I can speak for all of council that we're extremely thankful for all of you down there and what you're doing. And you see all these events going on down there and bringing all these families together and kids and just residents and, and people from the region. I mean, that's what it's about, right? That's what strengthens us inside. So, yeah, I just wanted to, really thank you. And then I did want to just ask Kevin, I don't know, like with the name changes, is there more info you need or is there something more we need from Alex before we...
So through your worship, no, I don't believe so. We've had conversations with Alex. We kind of understand where they're going, and we'll just work directly with him. And then because it's in our parks dedication bylaw, we may just need to make an amendment in there just to rename it properly. We'll take a look at that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
And just for all your information, the next 2 years of MOP's dedication is to redevelop the recreation park. We're not going to be focusing virtually other than maintenance and upkeep in Pioneer Village. The focus is for developing that park back to a family-oriented playground.
Excellent. Look forward to learning more about that, Alex. So.
It's only a $2.5 million project.
Yeah.
It's only money.
Yeah. But that's before you and Joe are involved, and then it's half of that. But no, thank you very much for coming in, Alex. And if you can really pass a thank you on to the board and the staff and all the volunteers.
Sure will.
It's definitely appreciated from the community, so thank you.
Thank you. And I hopefully see you all in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If I can get my act together.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alex. All right, our next order of business is 3 late items. I don't think there's no late items. No. 4, new Councillor Business. All right, 5, adoption of minutes. 5.1, minutes of regular meeting of council for October 30th, 2023 for adoption. Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Apollonio. Get some discussion to talk about the minutes? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Parslow.
So at last I found what I think is an error in the minutes. I may be wrong, but it's rare that I'm wrong, so I think you're wrong. No, that's only a joke. Item 2.2. We had that wonderful guy from Fort St. John representing the Métis Association. Is it correct to spell the van with a lowercase rather than uppercase? I've never seen it ever written with a lowercase, and I have lots of Dutch friends, but maybe it's a matter of his own preference. Have you got a definitive answer on that?
Through your worship to Councillor Parslow, staff confirmed that that's how he had it spelt when he submitted his delegation form. We will cross-reference that and ensure that we have it right.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow.
Just wanted to prove I read the minutes.
All right. I will call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Are you opposed?
No.
It's carried. Next, any business arising? No. 7, correspondence. 7.1, we have letter from Anna Warwick Sears, Executive Director, Okanagan Basin Water Board, received on October 18th, 2023, regarding a request for letter of support to reason call for immediate action to prevent invasive mussel introduction to BC. Anyone? Councillor Earl? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that we receive for information.
I have a second. Councillor Apollonio, any discussion on receiving for information? Well, I'll call that motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Next order of business was 7.2. We have email from Tammy Masnick and Kelly Little, Addictions Program Teachers, Northern Health, received on November 2nd, 2023, regarding a request for letter of support, Reason Sober Living Homes in Dawson Creek. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that we support this request for a letter of support for funding and grant options for sober living homes.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. I have a second. Councillor Kemp? Any discussion? Councillor Earl?
So just one or two, I guess, questions around this. This is just through you to staff, maybe, or something. Is this is an official request from Northern Health? The reason I'm asking if it's official from Northern Health because there have been instances around harm reduction in the past where different entities within Northern Health seem to be moving in different directions, and it wasn't necessarily known to within the organization who was doing what based out of Fort St. John and Prince George. And I'm thinking of the OPS site and what have you. So is this from Northern Health or from some employees within Northern Health?
So through Your Worship, that brings up a good point. You look at the request, it is a Northern Health email, but it is not on any letterhead at all. So if council wishes, we could certainly follow up, pending, verification that it's supported by Northern Health. If this motion was to pass, we could then fall through, but if it wasn't, we could, whatever council wishes.
Yeah, and it's not my intent to in any way diminish the importance of sober living facilities in the community and the need for them. Obviously, there's we've been asking for more options for people pursuing abstinence from drugs and alcohol for some time. So that would be greatly appreciated. I just want to make sure, given our experiences up to this point, measure twice, cut once kind of thing. Before we put the city's stamp of approval on anything. So that's my only inquiry.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Would it be worth inviting them in here as a delegation to maybe explain a little bit more what their vision and plan is?
Yeah, Your Worship, that's an option as well, and be able to have those discussions and hear right from Northern Health themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know if they're doing this through Northern Health or on their own, like it says. So, yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts after that little bit of discussion? Are we...
So, Your Worship, you have a motion on the floor to provide a letter of support.
Yeah.
And we will do that if that motion passes. If you want to alter that in some fashion, then you have options. Is one, you can have that motion hold and with an addition of pending staff following up and just verifying a couple of things, or you could defeat the motion and have a new motion to have someone come in as a delegation, invite them as a delegation.
Yeah.
Or whatever council wishes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion around that? Everybody's... Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I think in light of Councillor Earl's statement there about ensuring that this is a Northern Health initiative, I think tabling the motion and just having city staff look for a little bit more information on it and ensure it is through Northern Health, that might be our best option for now.
Bring back a bit more information.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
More secure information.
So would you want a motion directing that, Kevin, or do you need a motion directing that?
So, Your Worship, Tab suggests that we defer the motion until next meeting.
Okay.
And then that way that will allow us just to follow up and.
Okay. Do we need a motion to defer then? Okay. Got a motion to defer. Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Kempf. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, our next order of business is 8 reports. 8.1, we have report number 23-165 from the Asset Management and Budget Clerk regarding 2024 capital funding. Councillor Parslow.
Can I ask for some more information before we deal with the motion here?
Yeah, if you need it to make a motion, yes.
So, staff, are you aware that in a number of municipalities, just like ourselves, were surprised that the Growing Communities Fund, one of the non-permissible projects was renewable energy. And that has been, a number of places are, questioning that. And so I'm just raising a flag that the Growing Communities Fund disposition and allowable things may change. Are you aware of anything to further illustrate what I'm talking about, or is that news to you?
So through your worship, I was aware that it wasn't eligible. I have not heard any updates as you're speaking of. I haven't heard anything on that, but it wouldn't surprise me, if something was to change, because it would make sense.
Okay. The second question is, if we look at option A, what is the long-term impact of that when we have very little money as a municipality looking at our assets in a capital reserve on the future plans for establishing a viable capital asset management plan?
So through your worship, obviously if we take 5 million from the general reserve, I believe we have 10 million in there right now. At the end of this year, we would be putting an additional 5 into it. So it's going to maintain it at that, 10 million range. That's a long ways from where we need to be.
Yes.
No matter how you slice it. So it's an option, right? And so we wanted to bring this forward because there is it's time sensitive. We have to notify the regional district if we're intending to borrow before the end of the year. And, the signals we were getting through the process from council is that there were some questions around whether we wanted to borrow. So felt it prudent to bring these options forward.
And what would be, the last question is, what would be the city's plan of replenishing that $5 million? Are we going to be having, as many groups do, you borrow money internally? Are you going to pay interest rates to that? Or what is the plan? And what interest rates would you be charging ourselves?
Mm-hmm. So through your worship, that's an option. We can borrow from ourselves, pay ourselves interest rate back. I actually don't know what we'd be paying ourselves for interest rate. Assuming it would be the going rate. My understanding is that interest rates have fallen a bit from where they were. And I think Melissa has some rates are currently 4.69%, which is down a bit. But again, when we decide to borrow and then at the actual time of borrowing, that's going to be different and it could go up or down. We saw that last year where we saw an increase from the time we made the decision. So it's just tough to tell at this point. It's going to take time to build reserves. We know that. We're slowly doing that. But we also know that we've got an immense amount of infrastructure that needs attention. So it's very difficult to save and spend at the same time, as we all know, right? And that's part of the decisions that council have made as we've been transitioning with the PRA and everything is to try and enable us to be able to continue to have a healthy capital plan every year, but still be able to put some money away into the reserves and gradually build them up.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Anybody like to put a motion? Anybody like to put a motion? Help. Councillor Earl.
I have a question as well to go.
Do you need it before you get to motion?
It's about carryover infrastructure spending and whether we borrowed for the last couple of years to do work, and I think that was important work to do when rates were a lot lower and inflation was a lot lower. But we tend to have a significant amount of carryover every year that isn't being completed, which makes me obviously question the budget number. Not to say I wouldn't love to be able to spend all the infrastructure money every year, but if we're not able to spend it, the notion of borrowing either from ourselves or from the MFA to complete work that we're not completing seems counterproductive. So what level of confidence does staff have that if whatever decision council makes, this budget number can actually be spent on infrastructure in the year it's allocated?
Right. So through your worship, you're correct. We do have a number of carry forward projects. These particular paving projects that we've borrowed from are one of the ones that we are getting through. And when we have carry forward in those, it's usually just primarily just the finishing touches on some projects. We had one this year, 112th Avenue, that due to negotiations with a landowner, we were unable to complete. But other than that, we've been, the paving projects have been getting substantially completed each year, which is the part we're borrowing for. Some of the other projects that we've been using our general capital, we have been struggling in some of those, and that's been the message that we've heard from council and that I've been relaying to staff, is that we need to really look at our capital program for 24 to ensure it's attainable.
Thanks, Kevin. I need somebody to put a motion. Is there any more discussion? So, Councillor Parslow.
I make a motion
Please.
that report number 23-165 from the Asset Management and Budget Coordinator be received. Further, that the general capital paving projects in the draft 1 budget be funded by 4.3 million of the current year PRA allocation and 3.9 million from the Growing Community Fund and 1.1 million from the General Capital Reserve.
We have a second. Councillor Sudnick. Discussion. Councillor Earl. Or did you want to speak to it?
No,
Thank you, Worship. So I guess through to staff, 3.9 is pretty much the entire allocation of the Growing Communities Fund. And I don't know if we passed a motion officially stating it, but I know a portion of those funds were intended to go towards funding strategic priorities so that we weren't asking staff to deliver on them with no additional resources off the side of their desk. So I have reservations about using up the entire fund for this purpose. That's...
So through your worship, the only formal motion and resolution that we have is to put the 3.9 into the reserve, which we did. There was discussion through strategic planning that would be an option, but I don't believe that there was no formal resolution to that effect. So that's, again, that was just an option that we brought forward, is that that 3.9 is eligible, and it also needs to be spent within, I think, about a 5-year window. So something to be aware of as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Earl. Discussion. I had a couple. I'll sneak in, Councillor Parslow, if that's okay. I just won the 5 million. If we're not borrowing from that, I know the paving levy is a little bit different, but the 1.5% increase, the paving levy, part of that covers some of this interest that was allocated over the 5 years of borrowing 5 million a year. So, I think it makes sense to me with the way interest rates are, if we have the reserves put aside. I kind of like option A, the 5 million out of the capital reserves, but does that impact the tax rate increase of the 1.5 paving levy that's scheduled for this year by not borrowing?
So through your worship, the 1.5%, I do not believe is specifically tied to borrowing, but was a levy that council had decided at the time, which would be there to supplement or augment the paving program.
Okay.
So yes, could be used to help with the debt repayment, but was not specifically tied to that it was more just to augment specifically around some of our larger scale patching that we've done the last number of years, where we've been able to go in and just really extend the life of some areas.
On that 5 million, what is the saving the city if we were to take that out of reserves versus borrowing it based on a current interest rate?
So through your worship, you're just curious about what our borrowing costs would be for that period of time? I don't know if we have, over 10 years. So through your worship, the estimated interest payment over the 10 years on the 5 million would be, with a current rate of 4.69%, would be $2.3 million.
Million over 10 years. Okay. Okay. And then if we were to go ahead with this, the motion that's on the floor, I guess that growing communities fund is sitting in the general reserves, but I mean, that was money that was contributed to the community for different things. And I know we've had some discussion about where parts of that could be used. We've talked about, doing something downtown, a community area, or giving, something back to the community. Will that impact it in any way? I mean, obviously it would have to come out of a different fund, but.
Yeah, your worship. Obviously, you can certainly use the Growing Communities Fund for the paving, and you're able to, if you want, you can pull from general capital reserve for, another project, because you're not limited on your general capital as far as, whether you wanted to use it for, as Councillor Parcel brought up, an energy efficiency project, or the downtown hub, or, future splash park, or anything like that. Although the Growing Communities Fund is eligible for a number of things, there are some limitations. So ultimately, it's coming out of one reserve. You have the ability to pull from a different reserve if you wish.
With some of these limitations for that Growing Communities Fund, like not knowing all of them, do you see there being an issue in us using all of that fund within the time allocated? I don't know what the restrictions are, but do you have any concern?
No, your worship. I think, again, we know we've got a number of things that we need to fund. I think if it's not used for paving, there will be another thing I'm sure we could utilize it for. Again, it was just an option brought forward for him.
So I'm definitely for, not borrowing and using the money, especially if we have the reserves, but is there, I know there's different options here and there's reasoning for it, but like what's the best, in your opinion, I guess, for the city? Is it best just to take it out of the capital reserves and keep that Growing Communities Fund aside, or is it best just to use that Growing Communities Fund up now? Like, is it?
So, your worship, personally, I don't know that it matters. I think the Growing Communities Fund is, as you indicated, it was identified by the province for simply that, to try and address some pressures communities are facing. So it's and one could argue that, road rehabilitation is an aspect of that. Others may argue that some form of a recreational site or facility might be more appropriate. It's really just how you signal that and characterize it. the money's coming out of the savings account, as it were, out of a reserve one way or the other, whether it's coming out of the general or it's coming out of that. So it's really just how you're articulating it and characterizing it. So I think it can go either way. As I said, there are a few restrictions on the Growing Communities Fund. So by doing it this way and using it on paving, it removes your restrictions, because essentially you've got the money in the capital reserve, that the general, that you can use for, whatever you wish.
Yeah. Okay. Next, Kevin. Councillor Parslow.
Well, this whole affair here is precipitated by the needed decision: are we going to participate with the regional district's borrowing? Correct? So yes. We could just make a decision at this meeting that we decline to do that, or we will do, because they don't need to know the amounts yet, do they?
So through your worship, correct, we need to know whether we're going to borrow.
Yeah.
But we need to know I believe we need to know the amount we're going to borrow, or I'd like to know, so we can notify them, go through the process and establish that.
See, one of the things is, and this is not, I'm not castigating staff at all here, but the thing that I really think is bad practice is being forced to make a decision, a budget decision, without the full scope and breadth of our budget plans in total. And so this is being brought on externally to us, correct? Because I say I don't know. I mean, we'll maybe have some more clarity in the next few weeks around the important point that Councillor Earl raised, okay, around the issue, of having some funds to put some muscle behind some of the action plans associated with the strategic initiatives. But I also deplore the practice of borrowing internally without paying a fair interest on it. I prefer borrowing internally than externally for obvious reasons. But we don't have any policy on internal borrowing that I'm aware of. So I'm just putting that out as a principle, right? That we pay ourselves interest, but that's for future discussion. One thing I am definitely not in favor is option D. It pleases me no end when I drive in that north side of town and I see all the wonderful improvements that have happened in the last few years. It's catch-up. But we also know that when the roads get to a certain point, you're into a complete new build. And we've experienced that as well. So I strongly in support of the actual completion of the 96th Avenue and this initiative of trying to improve have a catch up on our road situation. But so it doesn't matter. I guess to me, if we have the capacity to borrow internally, I would favor that over external borrowing. As we all know, monies can be juggled within certain domains. And so I think, to me, the reason why I offered B is we have yet to deal with, develop a cohesive plan for our capital asset management. And without funding, it is just a waste of time. And so I'm passionate about having a dynamic capital asset management plan that is funded I know it won't be possible to fund it in a reasonable period of time, but we begin that as a legacy for future councils. So that's why I minimize the borrowing from that to 1.1 from the capital reserve. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Councillor Barzal. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say I agree about no external borrowing. I would like to see us borrow internally, but I would like to see a repayment plan, whether it is the 3.9 from the Growing Communities Fund or just strictly capital reserve. I would like to see a repayment plan with interest. And I appreciate the suggestion that if we do use the Communities Fund, it removes the limitations on future spending. That if we do want to do a downtown hub or recreation hub or whatever, we don't have to worry about limitations. This is community fund money. This is a good use for it. It falls within the parameters. We use it, and then we're not held by the province's limitations in future spending. But I would, even though it's the Communities Fund, I'd like to see it paid back. It's money that should be paid back and allotted for.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. I guess one, for this clarification on borrowing back and forth, like I have a little experience with that with, different companies. Like the paving is it's not a separate utility, is it? Like it's the city's general. So I don't know how you borrow in that aspect, but I guess at the end of the day, from my point of view, is if in today's world, if we can get away with not borrowing, we shouldn't borrow. $2.3 million over 10 years is a lot of revenue that we're essentially going to be taking to debt service something we don't need to. And if we have the money in the reserves, maybe it puts a little bit of pressure on that reserve, but I still feel that's the right thing to do. I'm just still hesitant on knowing whether option A or B is the right one, Kevin, whether we just take the $5 million just from the general capital reserve. And I think principally the 3.9 that we got for the Growing Communities Fund is something that is, to better the community and change things, which this is. But I feel like principally keeping that funds aside until we have, better strategic priorities and where we're going forward with our budget, and then knowing where we could allocate that 3.9 to, whether a portion is for this, a portion's for paving. To me, it just gives some clear direction, but I'm not on, so I guess that's what I just need some clarification, what makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah. So, Your Worship, the critical decision for staff is, are we borrowing or are we not borrowing? Because we have as Councillor Barzal indicated, an external timeline that we need to meet. What I'm hearing is that Council seems to be moving in the direction of no borrowing. So that's kind of maybe the first decision point. The subsequent ones of the funds and the internal borrowing and all that sounds like something that we need to come back with maybe some more more information on to help. And that's not as time sensitive, obviously, of how we fund it, which fund it comes from, the borrowing within, and what that can all look like. So, but we wanted to put, because if we didn't put those options out, the question would be, okay, where are we going to fund it from? So that's why we put those, those options there. I think, like I said, the critical decision is, are we borrowing or are we not borrowing? And then subsequently, there's maybe a further decision.
Okay, so I guess if council's decision, was to not borrow, should we defeat this and then just have a different motion brought forward that we're just not going to borrow, and then we can deal with this later when we have more information? Is that what you're thinking would be clear?
Yeah, Your Worship, I think that would be fine if we did that as well. And then we know that decision, and then we can come back with some more detailed options on what the using our reserves could look like.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, everybody clear on the motion?
My feelings again and defeat another one.
I'm not going to hurt your feelings. I'm only one vote. Councillor Barzal. All right. those, I'm going to call the motion on the floor to vote. Those in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. So all opposed. Councillor Parslow.
Make a motion that that council direct staff not to engage in any external borrowing for the fiscal year 2024.
Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick. Any discussion?
I've had it.
I will call that motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We'll call a 5-minute break. Council meeting for Tuesday, November 14th, 2023, back to order. Next order of business was 8.2, report number 23-168 from the corporate officer regarding appointment of bylaw enforcement officer. Councillor Kempf.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation, the report number 23-168 from the corporate officer regarding appointment of bylaw enforcement officers be received. Further, that bylaw officer Amdmt Carr and BC-SPCA employee Brianna Scarrow be appointed as new bylaw enforcement officers for the city of Dawson Creek. Further, that the appointment of former BC-SPCA employee Kennedy Howitt be rescinded.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald, any discussion? No. I'll call this motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Next order of business, 8.3, we have report number 23-170 from the corporate officer regarding 2024 council meeting schedule. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation, the report number 23-170 from the corporate officer regarding 2024 council meeting schedule be received. For the council adopts the following 2024 council meeting schedule: January 15th and 29th, February 12th and 26th, March 11th and 25th, April 15th and 29th, May 13th and 27th, June 10th and 24th, July 15th, August 12th, September 9th, October 1st and 21st, November 4th and 18th, and December 16th.
Thanks, Councillor Kemp. Do I have a second? Councillor Apollonio. Any discussion? Councillor Parslow.
So an email, I think it was sent to council reporting on the investigations of focusing on a small number of municipalities. Are they the typical ones that we reference back to? What are those municipalities? Is it Terrace, Quesnel, and is that the sort of reference group?
Through your worship to Councillor Parslow, which email are you referring to?
Oh, the one that you had, one of the aspects of your research was the prevalence of evening meetings as opposed to daytime meetings?
So I believe there was 104 municipalities looked at out of that, and those were province-wide.
And you found that only 1% of them had daytime meetings.
Yep.
So why aren't we following that, or what's the point of doing any research if we're going to just do what we've always done?
Through your worship to answer Councillor Parslow, the question was to find out who does daytime meetings, and that's what I did for you. Would you like further research?
No, I just wanted to make a point. So, is the recommendation in this schedule, okay, which I assume, again, just daytime meetings, right? I wondered why we are ignoring the prevalent practice. What is so different about Dawson Creek that we will seemingly continue to have daytime meetings?
So through your worship, that is a decision of council. And if you'd like to have evening meetings, that would be a decision you could make. I know we've tried it in the past with the hope of garnering more public involvement. At that particular time, which is a number of years ago, probably 20 years ago, it did not result in any more public involvement in our meetings. So, but ultimately, that's a decision that council can make.
Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Parslow.
Just one other point. One of the reasons might be is that some people cannot consider standing for election because they won't get time off work. We know some people have to use the vacation time to attend. So it certainly would perhaps enable more people to consider running for council if we have an evening meeting schedule.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other discussion? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
He's abstaining.
Next order of business is, he's in favor.
I have to be in favor. Abstention is always in favor.
8.4, our next order of business, 8.4, we have report number 23-171 from the mayor regarding 2024 acting mayor appointments. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation, the report number 23-171 from Mayor Dober regarding 2024 acting mayor appointments be received. Further, the 2024 acting mayor appointments attached to this report be approved.
Have a second. Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? No. I will call this motion to vote. Those that are in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All in favor. Next order of business is 9 bylaws. 9.1, land sales 62 Vic Turner Airport Road, bylaw number 4568, 2023 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Parslow, I have a second. Councillor Kemp, any discussion? No? I'll call this motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All in favor. All 7 hands were up. So, next order of business, 9.2. We have land sales 64 Vic Turner Airport Road, bylaw number 4571, 2023 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Earl, any discussion? Call this motion to vote. All in favor? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Next, 9.3. We have public notice amendment bylaw number 4572, 2023 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Apollonio, any discussion? No, I'll call this motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. All in favor. Next, 9.4, we have report number 23-172 from the corporate officer regarding council procedure amendment bylaw number 4574, 2023 for consideration of first 3 readings. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to recommend the report number 23-172 from the corporate officer regarding council procedure amendment bylaw number 4574, 2023 be received. Further, the council procedure amendment bylaw number 4574, 2023 be given first 3 readings.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. I have a second. Councillor Kemp, any discussion? No? I will call this motion to vote. Oh, did you have something, Councillor Parslow?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I do. So let's look at the end in debate section. So where it's in the italics, which reads, when the debate appears to have concluded, the presiding member must ask council if there's any further discussion on the matter before closing the debate. So the inference I'm making is the mayor will ask, and if one person says that, no, we need to have further discussion, then we have further discussion. It doesn't go to a vote. So one person, okay, can extend the discussion without necessarily the support of the rest of council. So that seems to be, what's the expression, robbing Peter to pay Paul? So we are preventing somebody ending debate, one person, so that takes care of that. But it doesn't take care of one person just prolonging debate because they want to be, what's the word?
Litigious?
I like that word, litigious. Yes, so I'm just suggesting that that should be put to a majority vote. Because, I mean, I don't think anybody on this council would deliberately extend debate maliciously, but I wonder if we should, if the question is asked and nobody, that's fine, but what if somebody says, shouldn't that be resolved by a majority decision?
I guess sorry, are we done?
On that
Yeah,
point,
okay. I guess my one question is we don't, I don't feel we have that issue with this council, and I know that this is about looking down the road and future, but at the end of the day, in 3 years, there's going to be a new council here, and they can just change it. So why change something that's not broken? And right now, when we do have debate, it's asked, is everybody clear on the motion that's on the floor? Is there any other new discussion?
Well, in this instance, we are changing something, okay? We're saying that the process, right, you must ask, right? And I think we don't write policies just for ourselves or for our term, we write it for the city. And then it's up to successive councils to see in their procedures and policy review whether they want things changed. But we're leaving a legacy here for future councils to deal with.
Yeah.
It's not just for ourselves.
Yeah. Okay,
And I'm just putting this, I think Eli, whatever his name was, Eli Mina, was putting forward in his, I thought was an excellent presentation for orientation for all elected governments in the Peace region here of democratizing the whole procedures, that it couldn't be just controlled by an individual. And so I support this change, but I'm just wondering if it should be put to a vote. But if this council doesn't want to do that and would allow someone like Kyle, if you like, he wanted to talk about something he felt passionately about, and he's spoken 4 or 5 times on the topic, he could say no. Not that Kyle's a bloody-minded person in any way, but you know what I'm trying to say?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, just trying to be constructive here.
Tab, did you?
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Parslow, the chair could decide to put it to a vote. It doesn't need to be written in the procedure bylaw, but you could, if it was the will of council and most of you thought that perhaps the discussion had ended and one person perhaps was very passionate about the topic and wanted to continue discussing, and if there wasn't, you guys weren't all in agreement, then yes, you could put it to a vote. And I believe Councillor Parslow, that vote would then be 2/3 majority to vote to end debate. But it doesn't need to be written here. You can do that under Robert's rules.
So you're saying, like, as per Councillor Parslow's, explanation, that if Councillor McDonald was saying the same thing 4 or 5 times over, I can still call and be like, look, if there's no new information or new discussion, I'm going to call the vote. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry to pick on you, Councillor McDonald, but I think Councillor Parslow put you out there, so I figured I might as well join in.
Anything.
All right, if there's no more discussion on this, I'm going to call this motion to vote. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Councillor Parslow. It's carried. Next order of business is 10 mayor's business, 10.1 mayor's updates. A couple things, obviously we had the U18 hockey in town last week. I want to touch on a few things that were important. Well, the whole event was important, but the exhibition game took place last Saturday in Chatwind. The district of Chatwind, Soto First Nations, and West Moberly First Nations all contributed to have the exhibition game in Chatwind. I was able to go out there and attend it with them, and it was amazing to see. One, it's just amazing for our region as a whole, but just to see their community behind it as well, and the support from those three out there and everybody. The arena was pretty full. There was a lot of people. It was the two Ontario teams that were out there, so it was a good game. It happened to be the only day last week where we had a severe snowstorm, so the traveling back and forth was a little bit of a challenge for all. But yeah, overall it was good. I just wanted to really give a shout out to the District of Chatwin and Soto First Nations and West Moberly First Nations for hosting that game, and it was well done. So. Going into the U18 hockey championships that started the day after, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to all the volunteers, the Ovintiv Event Center staff that make it possible, the city staff. It really, it was my first time being in an event like that on this side. And it was just phenomenal to see how everybody worked together to make it such a huge success. And you can't thank those volunteers enough. They're there, every time I was down there, it was the same volunteers. So it was just amazing. But, and the organizing committee too, same. Like there was just... Yeah, it was just absolutely amazing to see, and I can't thank them enough. But all of that being said, the most important thing for myself on these events is what it does to our community and the region. And there was people from everywhere, Tumblr, Grand Prairie, Chetwynd that I was talking to that were here throughout the week watching. But the kids, it's really what it's about. It's volunteers come and go, organizers come and go, workers come and go. The legacy this leaves behind for kids does not leave. It inspires kids like you would not believe. I had the opportunity on Sunday. I was at the hockey rink, and I seen a young girl that I get to see skate often out on the ice after she did the puck drop a couple days before, and after she got to hang out with some of the teams. She was a different player on the ice. And that, to me, is the complete win. Just seeing that one individual, that it just inspired her to a new level. That to me is why we're here and why we do these things. It's about the youth. And that young girl, I'm sure, will be inspired for years to come. And that's the true legacy of these, more so than any of the relationships, any of it, to me. So... I just wanted to touch on that because there's so many, moving pieces that make it a success, and those were all successful, right? It was, I don't think there's anything you could pick apart about how the event was, and, the facility, the volunteers, all of it was absolutely amazing, but it was, just that moment with that youth that I seen, and then, to have like the young girls dropping pucks at each games, and seeing them, and my son actually to see him get inspired by female hockey players, like he was like excited about that, right? And to see all these other kids, and yeah, it really is what it is. And those athletes, they're athletes, like they're professional athletes, the best U18 females in Canada. And they were on the ice, but they were more off the ice. From what I seen when they were out talking to youth, it was just phenomenal. So, yeah, just a huge thank you to everybody involved, and Hockey Canada as well. So, Legacy Village, they had their 15th anniversary last year, so I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Cameron and Tanya. It feels like it's only been 2 years, but it's 15 years that they've been in Dawson Creek operating their first location. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to them. The Ken Borick Wall of Distinction, I went to that, it was a couple Fridays ago. So, you know, the South Peace Oil Mills is another organization that, like, they do so much for our community behind the scenes, and it's not about recognition, but this is something that is an initiative of theirs. You know, and I got to go there, and you see you know, I think there was 3 to 5 folks from the South Peace Oil Mills are involved in the committee or from the oil mills. Every single one of their names could be on this. Like, they just truly are about doing what's right. But yeah, I just wanted to thank them. I also wanted to recognize the Wall of Distinction, the individuals that were put up there. So under the business category, and I won't touch on each of them because they're all just amazing people for our community and have been. But the business category was Jerry York, Larry Stefanik, and Henry and Mike Michaud. So like I said, all three, you know, very well-known in the business community, have given back to this community nonstop their whole careers to just make it a better place. Professional category, Tim Hankwich, Patrick Brennan, and Roy Forbes. You know, they're again 3 amazing individuals. And in the sports category, Steve Oliver, Terry Cook, and Jerry LaFond. So, you know, another 3 amazing individuals that give back so much to our community. And it's funny, I didn't know to see Jerry LaFond on the sports category. I thought when I first seen his name, it would have been on the business or the professional category, but I didn't know his sports career, so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, just wanted to give a huge shout out to those 9, and then, you know, just to see all the rest that are up on that wall as well, and to honor them at, you know, and the South Peace Oil Mills, it's just amazing. So next, ARC Resources, I had a meeting with them last week, I believe, or maybe it was actually a couple of weeks ago. Terry actually is the new manager for this region, so he just moved here from the Alberta side, from Grand Prairie. So I just had a, you know, meeting with him. You know, it was great to get to know him. And, you know, just that's really what it was, just a bit about building that relationship with him and, you know, understanding a bit about what they're doing. And Terry's also offered to give us a tour of one of their completely electrified facilities. So I think you guys have seen some emails go around there, but that was his offer to show us those facilities. So, yeah, and then I just had a couple of small things I just wanted to add. Just this Friday, the Christmas tree light up is going. I think it's 7:00 on this Friday. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And then also the Remembrance Day ceremonies would be on my next updates, but I think just because it was fresh, I just, yeah, it was this Saturday. Just, you know, just an amazing event to remember why we're here, and to remember all those, you know, all those fallen folks that you know, fought for what we have today. And yeah, it was a really touching ceremony this year, and I don't know if it's just because it was, you know, my first year in this chair and just a little bit, you know, more comfortable. And but yeah, it was just it really hit home with me this year going to the event. And not that I didn't respect that before, but it was just a different level this year. So I just wanted to touch on that. And yeah, it was just an amazing amazing ceremony. So yeah, that's all I had for there. Is there any questions, Councillor Parslow?
Not a question, but there's, I just want to say again how much everybody appreciated your attendance and fellow councillors' attendance. I think there was one thing that I'm talking about the Ken Borick Wall of Distinction, but the one thing that I touched me was the expression of fondness and gratitude for the community by so many people. And it also reminded me that something that's been lost. Mm-hmm. We had in the professional, at least 2 professional musicians honoured. And I know there are over 100 plus professional musicians, professionals who earn their living through the arts, who don't live in this community but were brought up here. And that was in large part, especially for those 2 people who recognized, we had Once upon a time, we had a wonderful music program at the college, a visual arts program at the college. We had a wonderful community choir. We had a wonderful symphonette. And look at the legacy, right?
Yeah.
That's what they were referencing. And unfortunately, that needs to be rekindled here. Those programs were lost, and it's quite devastating, I think. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to join my voice with yours over the U18 hockey tournament and just say thank you as well. I didn't want to do it under council business because I knew you were going to talk about it, but what an amazing event. It truly was amazing. Over 50 volunteers per game, including Councillor Kemp, who was there all week giving so much. Thank you, Councillor Kemp, for your time given. And I really want to just extend a thank you to the staff of OVG. During major events like this, they are the ambassadors of our community. They are the front line of dealing with so many visitors, Hockey Canada, etc. And they truly, they executed their role. Amazing. So a huge thank you to Dustin, Judy, Kyle, Brian, Alicia, and all their teams for knocking this event out of the park. We are truly blessed, and I'm sure many communities are extremely jealous of the relationship we have with Hockey Canada and the ability for us to put these events on. So a massive thanks to them. And I just wanted to highlight my favorite part of this weekend, or this week, was truly seeing the children of School District 59 there. At every morning game, there was between 700 and 1,000 kids there. Every 10 a.m. game this week. And what an atmosphere they brought to the building. And I agree with you. That's the true legacy of these events, is the effect it has on our kids, and not even just those who get the opportunity to drop the puck, and it's amazing for them to do that, but just the kids who've never seen that level of hockey before and wouldn't have the chance if it wasn't for partnerships like with School District 59. So what an amazing week. It was awesome. I look forward to the next one, truly.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. All right, any other comments? No? All right, next 10.2 delegation from Duncan Malkinson. I don't know if there's a real ask there besides that we, keep their comments obviously in mind when we're going through our budget planning, which.
Yeah. Through your worship, there was in the original delegation just mention about including the tax rates in the final budget document, and we made note of that, and we'll certainly include that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Earl?
While we're on the subject, are we expecting at the next meeting to see the preliminary tax roll report from BC Assessment? Is that what we're hoping for? Have we received that yet?
Through your worship, I don't believe we've received the preview roll as of yet. We're expecting it here in November. So as soon as we get that, then we will bring some information forward.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. And then 10.3, Alex Reshny, you don't need anything from there? Like, you kind of know enough what you need to know to bring forward to council? Okay, all right, thank you. Councillor Earl?
In reference to Mr. Reshny's presentation, do we need to provide a motion that we proceed with the bylaw as requested? Because he asked that we provide a bylaw to change names.
I think as discussed earlier with Kevin that we...
Through your worship, to Councillor Earl, we currently have a bylaw, a naming bylaw. We'll just look at it and amend it if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, 11, Chief Administrative Officer Operation Updates.
Thank you, your worship. Just a couple quick updates. We've been receiving a lot of phone calls about beavers along the creek. I know all of you have received some calls. I just wanted to let you know that we've received our permits and we're in the process of relocating some beavers and dams as well. So that's ongoing. One big piece was the accessibility plan that staff, and it's a regional plan that we worked in conjunction with the Peace River Regional District and member municipalities in the South Peace, North Peace, to put together an accessibility plan for the community. Well, for each community, it's, but this was something that the province had come down and said that we needed to have in place by September. And I'm pleased to report that we did get our plan completed, and we have an active committee, which comprises of some staff and members of the community, all focused around accessibility. So the committee's met, I think, 2 or 3 times already, and we'll be looking at all aspects within the community. As we've heard and we know that we have some challenges where we have, for instance, accessible parking stalls in the downtown, but inadequate access for individuals once they get out of their vehicles to get up onto the sidewalks. We're going to be looking and addressing it, at all those types of things in the community. So that's some really positive news. And the other thing I just wanted to note, and there'll be more information to come, but the provincial housing policy. So the province, as you may be aware, has indicated that they are mandating all local governments to update official community plans, zonings into the future, in the very near future, I should say, to allow for increased density and housing options in their communities. The message is that they're tired of waiting for us, that they are now going to impose these regulations. We will see. We haven't got into the technical aspects of it yet. It's just been more of a higher level, but what they're saying is the intent is to allow for up to 4 dwelling units on a typical residential lot, to allow for secondary suites in all residential zonings. Another big piece that I found interesting is that they are going to be taking away public hearings during rezonings, as long as it is in alignment with the OCP. So what that means is if it's in our OCP, it's designated as residential, and we have a residential property that's rezoning from single family to apartment, there would be no need for a public hearing in that rezoning because it's residential to residential. And it had already been identified in the OCP. So I think there's going to be some challenges ahead. There's going to be a lot of work for us. They are asking us to have our bylaws updated by June of next year. So we're supposed to get a more in-depth overview in December, and we'll bring something forward just as we understand what that means for us. But just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up on that.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Councillor Parslow.
So I expected some comments from you concerning the new legislation that prohibits municipal governments from dismantling tent villages unless they people who would be dislocated from their abode have an alternative to go to. Because I'm not sure what the definition of a tent village is. Is it 2 or 3 people in a couple of tents near a shelter, and that means that we can't move them? And any comments about that? Has there been any memos to explain it to you've received?
So through your worship, that to some degree has existed for a while. We talked about this last year where there was discussion about whether you could put up tents in a park, and yes, you can, provided that in the morning you take your tents down. Now that's different than creating, as you indicated, a tent village. Because we cannot prevent someone from having shelter overnight as long as it's in a temporary nature. There's a significant amount of case law out there that tells us that that's the way it is, and we're unable to do that. Now, if they establish, like you say, a tent village, then that's maybe different, maybe not, but it is all about them having somewhere else to go. And if you are to move them, where are you to move them? And that's really the crux of it.
Well, who has that? In reading some of the material on this topic, it begs the question to me, are they saying that a city, town, village needs to have a shelter to move these to? Or is it the existence, that maybe the Salvation Army has one? It doesn't say, but I was wondering if there was a implicit in the legislation some fettering municipal government from having people move away from, let's say, 10th Street and where they're camping, unless you, in this case the city, has an alternative location for them. That was my reading.
Through your worship, what I'm seeing from the provincial government and the messaging I see, through UBCM and everything else, is that they are creating policy legislation that is requiring municipalities to create these options, whether it be through our own bylaws and providing those avenues, or I feel that they're, as you indicated, possibly looking for local governments to start actually constructing, managing maybe housing as well. That's the signaling I seem to see.
Thank you, Councillor Parzo. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Worship. One or two questions, Kevin. With respect to the Accessibility Committee, is there any benefit in your eyes to having a council presence on there as a liaison in some sort of capacity, or is staff and local stakeholders sufficient?
So through your worship, I might even look to Devin, how the committee is made up. Do I see it being valuable? Yes. The intent of the committee is having representative folks from the community that have challenges with accessibility, but is there any restriction on the makeup of the committee? Okay. So
No,
I would say then there would be that opportunity for council to be involved.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, try as we might to make the community as accessible, we'll never have that firsthand experience as somebody who does live day to day in the community. And if there's some way we can contribute more to that, I'd be interested in hearing about it. Secondly, with respect to the recently announced housing initiatives from the province, I do understand there are some categories between communities with less than 10,000, communities with more than 10,000. In addition, I know some of the new regulations, whatever you want to call them, are only applicable to, or maybe it's just the Airbnb ones with communities with a vacancy rate of under 3%.
Yeah, so through your worship,
that doesn't include any of the other zoning stuff.
That's correct. The separate legislation around VRBOs, Airbnbs, short-term rentals is an opt-in or opt-out. You have the ability as a local government to decide whether you want to take on some of that.
Okay.
This one I was speaking of is
blanket across the province.
correct. There's no options.
And is it legislation as of yet, or is it just announced?
I don't know if it's actually legislation or if it's just announced, but
Okay.
we'd heard this was coming for some.
Yeah,
some
it might. I just think it might be worth, asking for some carve outs for me, because certainly I appreciate 75% of the public in BC lives in the Lower Mainland, and that's where there is a housing crisis. Certainly, we have housing challenges in our community, as does every community, but not to the same extent they do, and. It's not necessarily potentially the best approach for us or what's in our best interest. So if there is time to lobby for some exceptions, I think it would be wise to pursue that.
Yeah. Through your worship, and I think, again, more information to come. One of the first things that comes to my mind is infrastructure challenges. And so in some areas where there's more uptake for increasing this density, what does that look like for water and sewer infrastructure, for instance? You know, there may be a requirement for significant upgrades to allow for this densification. And I'm not sure whether that's been considered or not. And so that's what I'm looking forward to getting more information on as well.
Sorry, one last, and to your point, follow up on the secondary suites piece. I know we did a significant amount of work around zoning to ensure that we had sufficient parking to allow for those units where secondary suites were going to be built, and I'm not sure if this new legislation effectively neuters our ability to impose that requirement.
So through your worship, one thing I did see in the overview was that they were actually going to take parking requirements out.
And
In
if you
areas,
live in
not
Burnaby
just-
next to a SkyTrain station, that's
Exactly.
great, but
It may not apply to us, but they're talking about near transit hubs that they would take the requirement for parking away. So they are taking your folks' ability away to make decisions that are best suited for your community.
and as they're asking you or signaling to you that they expect you to entirely revise our local zoning over the next 6 months, are they indicating that they're going to be sending you additional resources to allow for that or fund that staff time, or are we picking up the tab?
Yes, through your worship, not that I'm aware of at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Kevin. Next order of business, 12, diary. Think there's anything in the diary? No? 13, consent calendar. Got a motion to accept the consent calendar. Councillor Earl, second. Councillor Kemp. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Anything need to be lifted? Next, 14, 2023 strategic priorities, 14.1. Any updates? No. Next order is 15 media questions. No media here. Next order of business, 16, recess to close meeting. 16.1, resolution to move into meeting of council, closed to the public. Agenda items 2.1 and 3.1, section 90 minutes as previously noted. Agenda item 5.1, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interest of the municipality if they were held in public. Agenda item 5.2, section 91J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 2.1 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Apollonio, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Take a few minutes and go into closed.